When I opened my eyes, I had been reborn. This competition will definitely see you taking first place again. A familiar voice rang in my ears. I suddenly opened my eyes wide. Those words. I knew them too well. I would never forget them, not even in another lifetime. Overconfidence is never a good thing. Just like how I was in my previous life. I glanced at the date on my phone, and my eyes welled up with tears. Around me, people were looking at me with admiration, giving me thumbs up and showering me with praise. As expected of the internet sensation Stone 3. The master artist. With you stepping up, this competition is sure to bring glory to our school again. A nationwide competition, and your work is guaranteed to take first place. I'm already looking forward to it. Stone 3 was my pen name, something only a few close classmates knew. I had posted many illustrations online, gained a decent following, and even accepted several commercial commissions. Some editors had already reached out to me, and soon I would be publishing my first art book. As I was lost in thought, someone tapped my shoulder. It was my teacher, standing behind me with a pleased expression. I have faith in you for this competition. I've seen your work. It's exceptional, even for you. This time, we're counting on you to win first place. Those hands on my shoulders sent a chill straight to my heart, like a knife twisting inside me. I couldn't breathe for a moment. In my past life, I hadn't lived up to their expectations. I didn't win any awards. Not only that, but I was disqualified and accused of plagiarism. The entire internet exploded with accusations against me. My online account was bombarded with hateful messages. And even those who stood up for me, my teacher and classmates, were attacked online. When evidence of repeated plagiarism surfaced, my teacher was dragged down with me, eventually forced to resign amidst the backlash. Thinking of this made me feel like I was being drenched in cold water. My hands and feet grew stiff, and the cruel words from before echoed in my mind, dripping with malice. A plagiarist dog who survived for years as a leech. You might as well just die. No one would even want you if you sold yourself. You're nothing but an ugly girl who loves to copy. Your true identity has been exposed. Just wait for karma to come knocking. How does it feel to get caught plagiarizing? Thinking about kneeling to apologize? Too late. Someone like you is trash. Everyone associated with you is just as bad. My breathing quickened as my fingernails dug into my palms, the pain snapping me back to reality. It reminded me of someone else. My boyfriend, Ethan. He had a stepsister, Emily, whom he always spoke about with pride. Though they weren't blood-related, they were extremely close. With a mother who was a famous artist and a father who was a university professor, Emily was undeniably a star student, someone with a golden future. Someone like her shouldn't have had any connection with me. But in my past life, she was the one who produced all the so-called evidence of my plagiarism and pinned me to the pillar of shame forever. But the illustrations and designs were mine, every single one of them. I had created them with my own hands, spending countless sleepless nights in front of my computer, meticulously crafting each detail. How could they have been plagiarized? I refused to believe it. I pored over the evidence again and again. When I finally finished, I was stunned. It was identical. The creation dates, the content, everything was the same, aside from some slight color adjustments and minor details. Some of her works had even been completed before mine. How was that possible? How could someone finish something I had created before I even completed it myself? In that moment, faced with such strong evidence, my face went pale. I couldn't understand it. How could my work end up in someone else's hands? Both the unpublished pieces and the ones I had never even shared were there. My heart raced as I glanced at the half-finished artwork in front of me. With trembling hands, I clicked delete. Even after checking around the room, I still felt uneasy, so I simply shut down my computer. Since this piece had already been plagiarized, I might as well switch up my art style, use a different approach, and create something entirely new. Surely, this time, nothing could go wrong. But there were still so many things I couldn't figure out. Like why Ethan was always so overly affectionate with Emily. He told me not to overthink it, saying she was like a sister to him, someone he'd grown up with. I had my doubts, though. Their behavior, combined with the fact that Emily had been the one to report me for plagiarism, left me suspicious. I had even checked Ethan's phone and computer. But aside from the occasional casual chat, there was nothing incriminating. Sometimes, though, he'd tell his friends things like, "I wish Abby could learn a thing or two from Emily. If only she could have even half of Emily's femininity." The longer I stayed with Ethan, the more he felt like just another man belittling me. He criticized me for lacking womanly charm, insisting I learn from Emily. One time, after a big argument over this, he had the audacity to say, "I'm just trying to help you, giving you constructive feedback." In my previous life, I hadn't even had the chance to break up with him before the online hate campaign destroyed me. He never gave me the opportunity. But now, in this life, I could see things clearly. I knew what truly mattered. Looking at the photos of my parents in my phone's gallery, my eyes started to tear up. I had prepared for this competition for months. I couldn't give up so easily. At the very least, I had to try again. I took a deep breath and looked at my computer before turning toward my roommate. "Jane, can I borrow your laptop for a bit?" I had a habit of sketching by hand. There was something about putting ideas onto paper that felt different from working on the computer. After carefully reviewing my sketches, I tore up the artwork I had spent a month preparing and started over. There was no way I was going to let anyone steal my work again. "Abby, why did you tear those up? You were already halfway done. Aren't you afraid you'll run out of time for the competition? Starting over now? Are you crazy?" Jane's eyes widened as she stared at the shredded drafts in the trash can. Hearing her concern, I smiled faintly and straightened up a bit. Running out of time is exactly what I want. With only a week left until the competition, the later I finalized my ideas, the less time I'd have for revisions. But it also meant less time for anyone to plagiarize me. I could monitor the rumors from Emily's side first. If nothing seemed off, I'd still have enough time to begin. I love drawing, from sketching by hand to digital art, and now participating in competitions. I'd been at it for over a decade, having started learning art in elementary school and continuing through middle school. This national competition was the most significant event of the year. I had to try. A good result could become a stepping stone for my future in art. And next month, my art book would be published. Seeing my work appreciated by more people and turned into a collection was a dream come true. This was a dream I had ever since I first started studying art. And now, that dream was about to come true. I couldn't allow it to be destroyed again. To avoid any similarities with Emily's work, I waited 3 more days before starting my final piece. During that time, I kept an eye on her social media. One of her recent posts featured a heavily censored image of her work. I couldn't help but stare at it for a moment. As I scrolled further, another photo caught my eye. In it, Emily was sitting beside her mother, the renowned artist. A bouquet of fresh flowers sat behind them as they both smiled brightly at the camera. Emily wore a low-cut dress that showed off her figure. The caption was particularly striking, making me raise an eyebrow. "This time, my mom has seen my work. I'm sure I'll do well in the competition. Thanks to Ethan for the flowers. Your support means everything to me. I'm definitely going for first place." I didn't say anything after reading it, just gave it a like. The comment section was flooded with praise. "Emily, you're stunning. She's got both talent and beauty. Absolutely unstoppable. Emily is the star of this competition, for sure. Can't wait to see her win first place. Growing up surrounded by art, she's destined for greatness." But don't forget, Abby is also competing, and she's won a ton of awards before. Still, Emily is on another level. Even her mom says she'll win first place. Setting my phone aside, I took a deep breath, picked up my pencil, and started sketching on a fresh piece of paper. I was determined to create something completely new. But what I didn't expect was that later that same evening, after I had finished my new sketches on the computer, Emily posted something on social media. "I've been plagiarized and have no choice but to start over. Sorry, everyone. Because of certain reasons, I'll have to create a new piece from scratch. But don't worry, I'll work even harder to bring you something great. Unfortunately, the plagiarist is a student from our school, so I can't say much more. She didn't reveal my name, but she might as well have. Everything was implied." Reading her post, I froze. This scene was painfully familiar. It was happening again, just like in my previous life. But this time, it was a week earlier. My heart sank. With the lessons of my past life in mind, I couldn't ignore this. I immediately grew wary, staring at the screen, at the sketches I had just completed. My scalp tingled. Soon after, Emily posted another update about her progress. Thanks for your concern. I've finished the initial drafts for my new piece. Could it really just be a coincidence? As I looked at my own original work on the screen, memories of the past life flooded back. I recalled Emily tearfully accusing me online of repeated plagiarism. She even claimed that I had privately threatened her multiple times to keep quiet about it. I had no choice, she said back then, her voice trembling in a live stream. She even threatened to harm my parents if I exposed her. Her tears, her vulnerable appearance, and her story of being bullied immediately won the sympathy of viewers. It didn't stop there. She brought her parents into the spotlight to validate her claims, showing side-by-side comparisons of our works. Her dramatic livestream attracted enormous attention online. No wonder she's so famous. She climbed her way up by stepping on others. Poor Emily, so talented and kind-hearted, being pushed to this point. She had no choice but to expose the truth. That was when the accusations against me spiraled completely out of control. How could they dare to say such things? Emily is so wonderful, and yet she still has to be threatened by someone like that. People like that deserve to die. Emily, don't be too soft-hearted. They'll get their karma eventually. Someone like that should suffer. If something happens, it'd be best if they dragged their whole family to hell with them. I didn't understand how it had come to this. Why did Emily fabricate such lies and throw dirt at me? I tried my best to clear my name. I even considered reporting it to the police to prove my innocence. But with the overwhelming evidence against me and the countless indirect insults hurled my way, even the police said there was nothing they could do. While the online harassment against me was at its peak, Emily won first place in the competition. The day photos of her holding the trophy were posted online, I decided to confront her in person. But before I could even get close, the security guards at her gated community threw me out. Photos of me near Emily's house were taken by passers-by and uploaded online, leading to even more malicious speculation. She's out for revenge. I'm so scared, Emily posted, adding just 4 words. Those 4 words were enough to expose my home address and all my personal information online. Extreme individuals showed up at my house, and some even decided to teach me a lesson. They threw Molotov cocktails into my home. My parents were innocent. After the fire was extinguished, I saw the blackened walls covered in handprints. Thinking of this, anger surged in my chest, and I clenched my fists tightly. I had to uncover the truth. As I was lost in thought, 2 people walked past, their conversation catching my attention. Can you believe Emily had to start over? Poor thing. I heard her new piece has a completely different style this time. That shameless plagiarist is probably targeting her again. With only 3 days left, who has time to start from scratch? But if it's Emily, she might just pull it off. Hearing their words, it felt like I had been struck in the head. I froze, my eyes wide, unable to process what I'd just heard. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and found a message from a classmate. The tone was probing, almost accusatory. Abby, did you plagiarize someone? I saw Emily's new concept today. It's identical to yours. Be honest with me. Abby, what's going on? I stood there, as if lightning had struck me. My mind went blank. My work had been stolen again. My heart pounded like a drum as I stood rooted to the spot, my back cold with dread. Memories of the ridicule and bullying from my past life rushed back, overwhelming me. I instinctively wanted to escape, to avoid thinking about where I had gone wrong. But I had already checked my computer and dorm thoroughly. There wasn't a single sign of anything out of place. My new piece was barely a rough sketch. I hadn't even planned out the colors yet. And yet, in just one day, Emily had surpassed me, posting an update saying she would finish her piece tonight. A wave of helplessness washed over me. People always sympathize with the one who seems to suffer the most. Compared to me, a girl from an ordinary family, Emily had a privileged upbringing, beauty, and talent. No one would ever believe she would plagiarize someone like me. With her starting point and resources, she seemed to be miles ahead of me in every way. Yet it was precisely someone like her who had stolen my ideas and my work cleanly, turning the tables and accusing me of theft instead. Even though I had done everything to avoid this, the thing I dreaded most had happened. Under Emily's latest progress update, a comment suddenly appeared that thrust her post into the spotlight. I think I know who's plagiarizing Emily. And here's the scary part. They're still copying her, keeping pace with her progress exactly. With just those 2 sentences, chaos erupted in the comments section. Emily didn't even need to respond. Everyone else was already in an uproar. My hand shook so badly that I dropped my phone. My heart skipped a beat as I bent down to pick it up. Just then, I saw a new reply pop up. Emily had replied to that comment. Thank you all for your concern. I believe the plagiarist won't dare to do it again after seeing this post. The competition is only a few days away. I'll keep updating my progress and sharing the latest developments. Feel free to join the discussion. I'll take everyone along for the journey. She included a picture with her post. My eyes froze on a portion of the image where the edge of a sketch was visible. A chill ran through me. I rushed back to the dorm, my breathing ragged. The room was empty, except for the sound of my own heavy breaths. Desperately, I opened my computer and began comparing. Minutes later, my body went cold, goosebumps covering my skin. It was identical. 80% of the sketch, down to the smallest details, matched mine. This wasn't just plagiarism. It was the exact same artwork. But it was only a draft I had completed less than 24 hours ago. To prevent another theft, I had destroyed the paper version of the draft and scanned my computer for viruses. I hadn't even used my own computer to draw this time. Sitting in the chair, it felt like I had fallen into an icy abyss. My breathing grew labored. What was I missing? I hadn't seen Ethan or Emily in the past few days. My roommate hadn't been around while I was drawing. No one, not a single person, had seen this sketch except for me. An hour passed before I snapped out of it, my trembling hand reaching for the computer. I didn't know how long I sat there. Outside, the sky had turned dark. The door creaked open, and my roommate walked in. I lowered my hand from the computer as she exclaimed, "Abby, how long have you been sitting here? Don't tell me you've been drawing this whole time. Did you even have dinner?" The computer screen went black as hunger pangs suddenly hit me. Glancing at my phone, I realized I had been sitting there for 7 hours. Forcing a smile, I assured her everything was fine. After double-checking my computer one last time, I left the dorm to get some food, finally feeling a bit of relief. But just as I let my guard down, rushing to finish my new piece and prepare for dinner, my phone buzzed. Emily had posted another progress update. The photo showed her standing in front of her computer, flashing a peace sign with a bright smile. On the screen behind her was her latest work, with a digital clock clearly showing the time. Seeing the post, my spoon slipped from my hand and landed back in my bowl of soup. At that exact moment, a familiar voice came from above me. "Abby, you're here too? Let's eat together." Looking up, I saw the person who had just posted that update smiling at me. Emily stood there, her phone in hand, wearing an innocent expression. Her eyes locked onto mine, as if she could see right through my thoughts. Emily's makeup was flawless. She stood empty-handed, while Ethan, behind her, carried her phone and a small handbag. When she looked up, our eyes met, and so did Ethan's. I was the first to break the gaze, lowering my eyes to the words on the screen. I couldn't make a sound. Emily had already finished her piece, half an hour before I had. "Thank you all for your encouragement. I've completed my work," she posted. Ethan was with her today, though he'd been so busy lately. Emily even added, "I hope Abby won't be upset." Feigning nervousness, Emily reached out and quickly took the handbag from Ethan's hand. Her tone was cautious, almost deliberately timid. Before I could respond, Ethan cut in, his voice dismissive and firm. "Why would Abby be upset? She has no reason to be angry with you. She can't even compare to you. So why bother explaining anything to her?" His words made my fists clench involuntarily, but I forced my emotions down and pretended to know nothing. I kept my face neutral and offered, "Why don't you both join me for something to eat?" Emily covered her mouth, laughing lightly. "I'll just drink some water. I'm getting chubby lately," she said, tracing her fingers along her slender waist in a teasing gesture. Ethan's gaze was fixed on her, completely captivated. Since I didn't react, he didn't bother hiding his attention, staring openly and even adding, Emily's figure is just perfect right now. She looks her best. Basking in his admiration and flattery, Emily smiled. Then, as if unintentionally, she asked about my competition piece. Her expression held a faint trace of triumph. I've been working all day without leaving the house, she said, pouting and gesturing toward her eyes as if pointing out imaginary dark circles. I stayed up for several nights just to finish my entry. Her words made me pause. When she asked me directly about my work, my heart skipped a beat. After a brief hesitation, I replied calmly, I think it's not perfect yet. I plan to refine some details. I want it to be the best it can be. Emily nodded, her expression unchanged, as though everything was completely normal. The three of us had barely started eating when a group of excited young men approached our table. One of them, blushing furiously, said, You're Emily, right? Wow, you're even prettier in person than in the photos. Another added, We've been following the story online, and we support you. You have to expose that plagiarist. If you need anything, just let us know. We'll back you up all the way. Don't worry, Emily. We'll help you however we can. The third chimed in, his face red with enthusiasm. Emily straightened her posture slightly, flashing them a warm smile. Thank you so much for your support, she said sweetly. With your encouragement, I'll definitely keep working hard. Let's all do our best together. Her words sounded magnanimous, but I knew the truth behind them. She wasn't planning to let me off the hook. The atmosphere at the table grew tense. Ethan's face flushed as he glared at the young men. Unable to hide his jealousy, he let out a cold scoff. Emily doesn't need your help. I'm here, and that's more than enough. Don't think I don't know what you're after. Emily gave a soft, helpless laugh but didn't say anything to defuse the situation. The tension in the air was palpable, and I sat quietly, watching the performance unfold. Ethan's possessiveness, Emily's carefully crafted demeanor, and the admiration of those strangers. It all felt like a scene from a play in which I was the unwilling audience. The atmosphere at the table was awkward. Suddenly, a girl's voice broke the silence from behind us. If you hadn't said anything, I would have thought you were Emily's boyfriend. She paused before adding, What a shame. Though, you already have a girlfriend. And, well, you're not that good looking. Pretty plain looking. Actually, oh, and you're always by Emily's side. Who knows if your intentions are pure? She turned to look at me. By the way, your girlfriend is the famous artist from our school, right? I heard she's also entering the competition. Who knows if you've been stealing designs from outside our door and giving them to her? Emily is so beautiful and kind-hearted. She's nothing like your girlfriend, who probably had to claw her way to get anywhere. Your girlfriend may be skilled, but Emily has been immersed in art since she was a child. The girl smirked. I always believe that a person's appearance reflects their heart. I heard people saying that as soon as the news of Emily being plagiarized came out, this one started rushing to revise her own work. I won't say it directly, but we all know what's going on. If there's nothing shady, why would you need to rush to fix your prepared work? The tall girl who had come in with a group of guys crossed her arms, glaring at me with complete disdain. She looked at me as if I was dirt under her shoe. She's beautiful, and I'm ugly. She's good, and I'm bad, I thought, as I realized that the rumors had already started to spread online. People were comparing the similarity between my work and Emily's. Even though the initials on the pieces were mine, it was clear to anyone who thought about it that I was the one they were talking about. A group of people were practically spelling it out. Emily lifted her chin proudly, basking in the compliments from the group. She looked at me with barely concealed malice in her eyes. Ethan urged me to leave quickly, telling me not to sit there and cause trouble. But I knew if I left, it would look like I was guilty. Too afraid to face them, I couldn't run away anymore. I steeled myself and pushed Ethan's hand away when he tried to pull me out of my seat. I turned to Emily and spoke, my voice trembling. Emily, I'd like to see your competition entry. Before she could respond, a cup of water splashed over my head. The girl who had just sat down next to Emily jumped up and threw a cup of ice water at me. Her face contorted with rage. You filthy bitch, she yelled. Get that water all over you. Dream on. I stood there, completely drenched, feeling utterly humiliated. The laughter from the other tables filled my ears. Emily covered her mouth, either in surprise or amusement. I couldn't tell. When the girl finished yelling, Emily's lips curled into a smile. All right. I believe you, she said softly, almost mockingly. Emily, you shouldn't be so harsh. She might not have done anything wrong, someone suggested, standing up to try and intervene. But Emily remained unfazed. She opened her laptop, showing me her work, and even began wiping the water off my clothes in a surprisingly intimate gesture. Abby won't plagiarize my work. We're good friends, Emily added, her tone sweet but cutting. The group of people stared at me with disdain, pointing at me as I bowed my head, unable to look them in the eye. See, I told you, one of them said. How can you not see it? Emily's been nothing but kind, and here she is, trying to help this plagiarist. As I looked at the screen in front of me, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could this be possible? Why was it that no matter what I did, Emily's thoughts always seemed to mirror mine? The moment I saw the image, I shivered uncontrollably. It was almost identical, at least 80% the same, except for some minor details. The overall structure was virtually identical to mine. What was worse, she had finished it an hour before me. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I stared at the screen, unable to process what had just happened. I was at a loss for words. Emily placed her hand on my shoulder and smiled brightly. So, what do you think? She asked. Meeting her gaze, I felt my fingertips dig into my palms as a wave of dizziness washed over me. After several seconds, I shifted my gaze away and responded decisively. Not much. This piece has a lot of flaws. As soon as the words left my mouth, the person across the table stood up abruptly, knocking over a glass of water in their haste. Emily's expression faltered, her face showing a hint of panic as she frowned and looked at me with uncertainty. Abby, what do you mean? What flaws? Could you give me some advice? She asked, her voice gentle and seemingly sincere. The room filled with noise as murmurs and accusations erupted around us. Emily, it's obvious. She's the one who plagiarized you. Everyone can see it. How shameless can she get? Plagiarists like her need to stay in their lane. Amid the commotion, some voices tried to defend me. Don't talk if you don't know the full story. Stop hurling accusations without proof. But Emily didn't get an answer from me. I stood up and walked out, ignoring the insults being thrown my way. When I returned to the dorm, the oppressive emotions I'd been suppressing burst forth. Looking at my desk and cabinet, which had clearly been rifled through, I covered my face with my hands. The shredded pieces of my draft, which I had thrown into the trash earlier, were gone. Checking my phone, I saw that my inbox was flooded with messages. Apparently, some self-proclaimed justice warrior had broken into my dorm and found the discarded pieces of my draft. They had pieced it back together with tape, taken photos, and posted it online as evidence of my plagiarism. The comments online were ruthless. The proof is undeniable now. Abby copied Emily's work. Who knows when she managed to sneak a look at Emily's draft? Emily mentioned finishing this sketch 2 days ago, and Abby must have seen it after that. She spent the entire day holed up in her dorm, sneakily copying Emily's work. So disgusting. No wonder no one saw her leave the dorm all day. She must have been too busy copying. Gross. Some claimed to live in the dorm next to mine, saying they'd heard I hadn't left my room for a day. Others encouraged Emily to confront me directly. I didn't even need to open my messages to know what they said. Looking at my phone, I laughed bitterly, and tears spilled out of my eyes. Helplessness, fear, and confusion swirled within me. I took a deep breath, trying to push away the overwhelming emotions. Memories of my previous life flooded back. How depression had consumed me. How my uncontrollable anger had led to my downfall. I thought starting over would change the ending, but no matter how much I struggled, I always seemed to end up in the same place. I turned to the computer screen, staring at my latest draft. Silently, I put on my glasses and stared at the image for a long time. Eventually, I took my glasses off and rubbed my tired eyes. When my roommate returned to the dorm with some late-night snacks, she froze at the sight of me. Her eyes darted nervously. Abby, we heard about what's going on. We believe you. But, she hesitated, her voice trailing off. The evidence online. Before she could finish, her words were cut off by the sight of my computer screen. My other two roommates gathered behind her, their gazes fixed on the screen. When they saw the image, they froze in awe before letting out exclamations. "Oh my God! Abby, this is incredible. There's no way you copied anyone. This piece is stunning. If you submit this, you'll definitely win." They crowded around the computer, marveling at my work, their excitement palpable. But I calmly closed the laptop and shook my head. "I've decided to withdraw. I'm not entering the competition," I said firmly. The dorm fell silent. My roommates stared at me in disbelief. "Abby, you're so talented. Why are you giving up just because of what people are saying online?" Ignoring their pleas, I quietly pulled out my suitcase and began packing. Their questions and protests continued, but I remained resolute. As I zipped up my bag, my heart felt heavy with mixed emotions. Still, I shook my head, refusing to change my decision. I had finally made up my mind. The competition wasn't the most important thing. This competition had already disrupted my life too much. I was going to quit. At the very moment I decided to withdraw, a sense of relief washed over me, though my body felt unusually exhausted. I called my academic advisor to inform them of my decision. This time, I resolved to take a break for myself. I gave myself 1 month to rest, to reset, and to spend time with my parents. As for Emily, I couldn't waste my energy thinking about her anymore. Sitting on the high-speed train home, I absent-mindedly scrolled through my phone. I saw Emily's latest post. "I've officially submitted my entry. My previous work needed some revisions, but it's all done now. Everyone, look forward to my good news." Reading her words, I couldn't help but chuckle. When I arrived home and saw the familiar sight of our house, my eyes welled up. I looked up sharply, trying to stop the tears from falling. My parents couldn't see me like this. "Our little girl's home. You didn't even give us a heads up so your dad could pick you up," my mom said as she welcomed me warmly. "Let's buy some of your favorite food for dinner." My parents spotted me from afar and didn't ask why I had come back so suddenly. They didn't press for details. Instead, they told me to put my things down, wash my hands, and get ready for a good meal. The tears I managed to hold back outside came rushing out now. "Mom, Dad, I want to take a proper break, and I'd like to get a full medical checkup," I said, my voice trembling. In my past life, depression had consumed me, eventually leading to my suicide. This time, I cherished my healthy body far more. The first thing I did after returning home was schedule a comprehensive medical checkup. I went to the hospital multiple times, reviewing all the results carefully, seeing a few abnormal findings. My expression darkened. After some follow-up tests, I left the hospital with my records in hand. When I returned home, I gave both of my parents a tight hug and smiled. "Mom, Dad, let's take a trip to Dalian. Just the 3 of us," I said cheerfully. They stared at me, stunned, unsure how to react. The next morning, we boarded a plane to Dalian. Over the years, I had saved up money from my art commissions, and now I could finally use it for something meaningful. The sea breeze hit my face, instantly lifting the weight from my heart. "Mom, let's try some sea cucumber rice for lunch. And those seaweed buns. I want to try those too," I said, smiling. As the sun set over the silver beach, I held my parents' hands, a content smile spreading across my face. My mom handed me a light jacket and a snack. Sweet and sour crispy pork. The vinegar's tang was sharp, but it tasted incredible. The online recommendations for local food were spot on. Walking along the beach, listening to my parents chat about everyday things, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, with no burden pressing on my shoulders. This was the most relaxed I'd felt in years. Ethan, however, seemed to have a lot of questions for me. He called and messaged repeatedly, asking why I had withdrawn from the competition, why I hadn't told him I was taking a break, and other things I didn't care to answer. His texts grew increasingly exasperated. "Abby, you're too much. You're so selfish." I ignored them all. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't going to let anyone ruin this piece. "You've been posting art online for so long, and now you suddenly stop? Don't you owe something to your followers? And the competition? How can you just decide not to participate?" Even Emily couldn't resist messaging me. Abby, why did you stop drawing? And what about the competition? Their messages completely ruined my good mood. Sitting with my parents, I ate a steaming bowl of spicy hot pot, sipping water my mom handed me as the heat made my nose tingle. Neither Ethan nor Emily had good intentions. Even though I'd withdrawn from the competition, they clearly weren't planning to let me go. I blocked them both, deleting their contact information without hesitation. Then, I turned my attention back to my food, savoring every bite. Dalian was truly a wonderful place. The sea breeze seemed to carry all my worries away. After cutting ties with those two, I took a moment to scroll through the hateful comments online. Emily is a true genius. Her entry will absolutely win first place. Good riddance. Plagiarist. Quitting the competition was the right move. Disgusting. Look, the person who withdrew was clearly guilty. It's obvious who it was. Emily's victory is like the perfect protagonist slapping everyone in the face. Love to see it. Plagiarists should be exposed to set an example. We can't let them get away with this. Reading through the comments, I bit into a freshly baked corn bun, feeling oddly calm. I was becoming increasingly certain that Emily was behind all of this. Even with me out of the competition, she wasn't planning to stop her attacks. She wanted to use me as her example. Thinking back to the horrors my parents had faced in my previous life, my heart grew cold. I tapped on my phone, carefully crafting a response. Under the most popular post praising Emily's entry, I left a detailed comment. Does anyone else think this piece looks a little familiar? The rest of my message was long, deliberately pointing out several key details. At the end, I tagged a few of the competition judges. Among the sea of praise, my comment quickly stood out. Get lost. Hater. You're just jealous of her talent. Do you even know whose work this is? How dare you say that? Are you another contestant trying to sabotage her? Pathetic. Despite the backlash, my words seemed to stir something. This actually reminds me of something. The comments multiplied rapidly, sparking more discussion. An hour later, I received a direct message from a stranger. Emily's entry is getting a lot of attention. Who wouldn't love a young, beautiful, and talented girl? I couldn't understand why someone like Emily, who seemingly had it all, would go out of her way to target me. She spread rumors, threw dirt on my name, and destroyed my life and family in my past life. But none of that mattered anymore. As I stared at my phone, the hatred I'd been carrying slowly faded. No matter what methods she used, it wouldn't work on me anymore. Now, I just wanted to see how far Emily would go, how deep into the lies she'd sink. The moment I saw her final entry, I was 100% certain she had plagiarized my work. Because I had withdrawn from the competition, she had grown even bolder. She copied everything, down to the smallest details, striving for absolute perfection and replicating my work. What she didn't realize, though, was that during my last round of edits, I had prepared a little gift for her. I hoped she would enjoy it. While chatting with my childhood friend, I recounted the strange events I'd been experiencing. Wait, are you saying she's copying everything you do? My friend asked. Incredulous. That's impossible. Something's definitely off. My childhood friend said firmly, wait until you're back. I'm coming over to your place. Time flew by, and by the time my parents and I returned from Dalian, Ethan was blowing up my phone with calls from unknown numbers. His persistence was unbearable, and I finally gave in and answered. Abby, what the hell did you do? He shouted as soon as the call connected. Are you trying to ruin Emily? This isn't over between us. His last sentence made me chuckle. That's exactly what I should be saying to him. With a smirk, I hung up and opened my social media app. The moment I received his call, I knew my little gift had been delivered. As soon as I opened the app, countless notifications flooded my screen. But this time, they weren't directed at me. Instead, they were slamming Emily. My final, perfectly executed revision had worked. Emily was in trouble. Her competition entry had been reported by multiple people for plagiarism, and the official investigation had confirmed it. Her entry was exposed and disqualified from the competition. The news spread like wildfire, leaving everyone stunned. The official evidence released was undeniable. Even Emily's usual supporters couldn't stay silent. Those same classmates who once rallied against me now had someone new to target. Some talent. Huh. Her entry was just a patchwork of stolen ideas from here and there. Who taught her to plagiarize like that? Honestly, I'm impressed she managed to copy so many well-known artists and still make it look cohesive. It's almost a skill. AI stitching gone wrong. Huh. And she used to speak so proudly about her work. Now look at her. She can't even come up with an excuse. This whole thing made Abby leave. She didn't deserve that. Honestly, I feel bad for her now. Why would someone like her need to plagiarize someone like Emily? I lay in bed, reading the comments and laughing until tears streamed down my face. Emily's account was shut down, and when Ethan tried to defend her online, he was immediately attacked by angry commenters. His attempt to shift the narrative only backfired, and he was left humiliated. For once, he could taste the bitterness of having dirt thrown at him. Later that day, my childhood friend stood in my living room, watching me intently. So this classmate of yours, are they really that incredible? They can somehow predict everything you think or create, even down to your drafts. I nodded, confirming his suspicions. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, furrowing his brows. That doesn't make sense. It's the 21st century. There's got to be something else going on here. Let me check your room. I have a sixth sense for these things. Trust me. I followed him to my room, and he began to inspect everything. He searched high and low, even checking under the bed and in the gaps between the walls. Finally, he stood there, puzzled. This is strange. There's nothing here. But I can't shake the feeling that someone's been watching you, he said, his eyes scanning the room. His gaze landed on the spot where I always hung my bag near my desk. He stared at it for a few seconds before asking, Abby, do you always hang your bag there? When I confirmed, he took the plush keychain attached to the bag and handed it to me. Check this out. Feel it carefully, he said. I squeezed the plush toy and froze. Inside, there was a small, hidden object. Pulling it apart, I found a miniature camera. I stood there, stunned. That plush toy had been a casual gift from Ethan when we first started dating. I had never suspected it. From the very beginning, Ethan had been spying on me. That camera had been with me throughout our entire relationship. No wonder Emily had copies of my drafts. No wonder she knew my every move. My childhood friend urged me to go to the police immediately. I held my childhood friend back, asking him to keep everything a secret from my parents for now. No rush. Let's wait a little longer. I'll update you if anything changes, I said. I wanted to be patient, to see how things would play out. Meanwhile, Ethan and Emily had turned against each other. Unable to handle the backlash from being exposed for plagiarism, Emily shifted all the blame onto Ethan during a tearful live stream. This was all Ethan's idea, she sobbed. I told him not to, but he forced me. That draft wasn't even mine to begin with. It was his idea to copy Abby's work. Ethan couldn't believe the accusations and tried to defend himself. But Emily quickly silenced him. You think your reputation matters more than mine? Shut up, she snapped. Unfortunately for both of them, their classmates weren't stupid. This time, no one stepped in to defend Emily. Wherever she went, she was met with cold stares and disdain. It only took a few days for her to crumble under the pressure of being ostracized. And, as expected, she took out her anger on Ethan. You're nothing but a dog I've been feeding, she sneered. All you do is cling to me, and you're completely useless. She wasn't done yet. You're the one who said Abby was talented, and you approached her for my sake. What kind of man are you? You even drugged her, promising me that I'd win first place. And what happened? You're worse than a dog. Ethan's face turned red with fury, and with a loud smack, he slapped Emily across the face. She stared at him in disbelief, holding her cheek. Are you insane? Before she could say more, Ethan slapped her again, harder this time. His eyes were bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth in anger. Shut up. If you hadn't flaunted yourself so much, Abby wouldn't have found out about your stupidity. And don't you dare bring up the drugs. That was all for you. Emily, have some conscience. The revelation hit like a bombshell. Ethan's voice dropped to a low growl as he said, if you hadn't been so reckless, none of this would have happened. Emily, teary-eyed and humiliated, declared that she wanted nothing more to do with Ethan. But Ethan lost it completely, his eyes widening in desperation. Don't even think about it, he yelled. "You and I are tied together for life." When I arrived with the police, Ethan and Emily were physically fighting. Their struggle was vicious, but Ethan's strength far outmatched hers. In front of all of us, Ethan kicked Emily down the stairs, sending her tumbling to the bottom. I gasped as Emily fell face first onto the ground, motionless. Ethan's face turned pale as cold sweat dripped from his forehead. Before he could even react, the police stepped in. As Ethan sank to the floor, unable to stand, the officers handcuffed him and escorted him out. Watching him being taken to the police car, I finally felt a sense of relief. It all made sense now. In my previous life, my depression hadn't come out of nowhere. No normal person could have handled the drugs Ethan had secretly given me. This time, the health checks had flagged something off, giving me a faint suspicion. And now, I had heard it all directly from Ethan's mouth. But this wasn't the end. Ethan had also been responsible for the hidden camera he planted in my room. I hadn't even confronted him about that yet. The root of it all was Ethan and Emily targeting me for my talent, wanting to use me to pave Emily's way. After reporting everything to the police, I learned that Ethan had been uploading my work to external platforms in secret. In my past life, all their actions had one goal: to ruin me so thoroughly that I could never draw again. As they were taken away, Emily to an ambulance and Ethan to the police car, Ethan glared at me with pure hatred. His eyes sent a chill down my spine. Not wanting to take any chances, I turned to the police and said firmly, "I refuse to settle. Let the law handle this." Hearing my words, Ethan screamed insults at me, but I smiled, feeling victorious. Emily, meanwhile, had suffered severe injuries to her spine and legs. Even after treatment, she was left with a permanent limp, which made her gait awkward and almost comical. It was a lifelong mark of her downfall. She would never recover. Unable to handle the backlash, Emily spiraled into madness after being expelled from school. Her final fate was being admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Ethan was also expelled, and the truth about him drugging me and installing the hidden camera in my room was exposed online. It served as undeniable evidence in my favor. At the very least, I wouldn't have to see him for years. Letting him enjoy the state's hospitality was exactly what he deserved. Competitions happen every year, but life doesn't offer second chances. In this life, I successfully broke free from the tragic fate of my past. By the end of the year, my first art book was published without a hitch. I shifted my focus entirely to my studies, and by the following year, I entered the competition once more. This time, I won first place. Standing on the podium, I thought of Emily for the last time. Her privileged upbringing and environment had given her a shortcut to success, but that same privilege made her even more susceptible to temptation. The higher she climbed, the more precarious her position became. Without a solid foundation to support her, her downfall was inevitable. She fell from the heights she so desperately clung to, shattering into pieces. Looking at the family and friends who stood by me, I lifted my head slightly. Today was another beautiful day.